So, what happens when the world is supposed to end and then it doesn't? You'd think, right, that's it, game over for whatever group was predicting doomsday. But what if I told you that a massive, catastrophic failure could actually make their belief even stronger? It's a wild idea, so let's get into it.
And this quote right here, it just nails the paradox we're going to unpack. It comes from a classic study on this stuff, and it's totally counterintuitive. I mean, how on earth does being spectacularly wrong somehow make you more convinced you were right all along?
Yeah, that is the big question, isn't it? It just seems to fly in the face of all logic. But here's the thing. There's a really powerful psychological theory that not only explains it, but can pretty much predict it. And that's what we're here to do, show you exactly how that works. All right, so the key to unlocking this whole mystery is a little something called cognitive dissonance theory. It's a classic, a real heavy hitter from social psychology. Think of it like a special pair of glasses that lets us see why people cling to their beliefs even when all the evidence is screaming the other way. So here's the deal with cognitive dissonance. It's all about this really intense feeling of mental discomfort. Just imagine for a second, you've gone all in on something. I mean, your money, your reputation, your whole view of the world is tied up in this one core belief. And then reality comes knocking and proves you wrong. Bam. That creates this horrible internal conflict, this mental static. It's so uncomfortable that your brain will do just about anything to make it stop. Okay, so how does your brain fix this? Well, it's kind of like a four-step process. You start with that core belief, right? Then, wham, you're hit with evidence that just completely contradicts it. That's when the discomfort kicks in. But, and this is the absolute key, instead of just giving up on the belief, I mean, that would feel like a huge failure, wouldn't it? It's actually easier for your brain to just twist things around. You reinterpret the evidence, or even the belief itself, until the conflict just melts away. Now, to really see how this works in the real world, we don't even have to go back to ancient times. Not yet, anyway. We can start with this amazing, perfectly documented case from the 1800s. It lays out the whole process so clearly, well, you'll see. Okay, let's talk about the Millerites. Their leader, a guy named William Miller, he was absolutely certain he knew the exact date of the Second Coming, October 22nd, 1844. Mark your calendars, right? And people were all in. I'm talking selling their farms, quitting their jobs, the whole shebang. They gathered on hillsides, just waiting. And then, October 22nd came and went. The sun came up on a totally normal, unchanged world. The prophecy was a complete and total bust. You can just feel the crushing disappointment in this quote, can't you? This is from one of the leaders, Hiram Edson, and it just perfectly captures the devastation. This wasn't just, oops, got the date wrong. This was their entire reality crumbling around them. And right there, that is the absolute peak of cognitive dissonance. So what happened next? Did they all just pack up, go home, and say, well, that was embarrassing? No way. Not even close. Instead, this brilliant new idea starts to take hold. The timing, the date was right all along. They just misunderstood the place. See, Christ didn't come back to earth. Oh no. He just moved into a different part of heaven to start the next phase of his work. And this move, this reinterpretation, it's often called spiritualization, was just genius for three reasons. First, it meant they could still hope for a future return. It wasn't over. Second, it protected that all-important date. 1844 was still super significant. And third, and this is the big one, it made their belief impossible to argue against. How can you disprove something that happened in an invisible spiritual realm? You can't. It cleverly split their belief into two parts, a spiritual already and a physical not yet. Okay, so keep that Millerite template in your head, because now we're going to use that same lens to look at the very beginnings of Christianity. For Jesus' earliest followers, the big dissonant moment wasn't a missed date on the calendar. It was something far more traumatic, the crucifixion of their Messiah. And the contradiction here is just massive. I mean, think about it. The belief was that the Messiah would bring in this triumphant physical kingdom on earth. He was going to kick out the Romans. The reality? He was executed by the Romans as a common criminal. It's a total 180-degree collision between what they believed and what they saw with their own eyes. So how do you resolve that? Well, the resolution was absolutely world-changing. The belief in Jesus' resurrection opened the door for a total reinterpretation. Suddenly, the cross, which was the ultimate symbol of failure and shame, gets completely flipped on its head. It's reframed as what one scholar calls a paradoxical messianic achievement.
It wasn't a defeat at all. It was actually the most important victory in God's entire plan.
And look, we see the same pattern as the Millerites, right? They split their expectations. The already part became all these spiritual, invisible things, Christ going up to heaven, the gift of the Holy Spirit. And all the stuff you could actually see and verify, the final judgment, a brand new creation, that all got pushed into the not yet category. And just like that, their core belief became unfalsifiable.
All right, let's switch gears and look at early Islam, because it also faced a huge crisis about the end times. And according to the work of historian Paul Casanova, the way they resolved it was, well, it was pretty different. So Casanova's thesis is that the original expectation was that the Prophet Muhammad himself would be alive to see the hour, the end of the world. So you can imagine his unexpected death in 632 CE sent shockwaves through the community. It created a huge problem. But their solution wasn't to spiritualize it. Instead, they postponed it. They basically reconfigured the whole end times narrative, which brought in new figures like the Mahdi, a kind of redeemer figure who would show up later to tie up all the loose ends. So what we have here are two major world religions, both starting with these super intense end-of-the-world beliefs, and both facing a moment where reality didn't match the prophecy. So let's just put their solutions next to each other and see how they stack up. Yeah, this table really lays out the difference, doesn't it? The early Christian response was mostly hermeneutical. That's a fancy word for saying they went back and reread their scriptures in a new way to find a spiritual meaning for the kingdom. But the crisis in early Islam, at least in Casanova's view, was different. You couldn't just reinterpret your way out of it. The solution had to be reconstructive. They had to actually change the timeline of the future and add new pieces to the story. Okay, cognitive dissonance is a fantastic tool for explaining all this. It's really powerful. But is it the only explanation? To be fair, we should probably look at another angle, right? It's always good to consider other possibilities. So here's another take from a guy named Richard Prushel. His idea is that maybe we've got it backwards. He argues that communities don't really form around a belief. They form to meet really basic human needs, social connection, economic support, that kind of thing. In his model, the belief is just the story they tell themselves, the superstructure. And that story can be changed, tweaked, or totally rewritten if it helps keep the community, the infrastructure, from falling apart. So it's not the belief controlling the people, it's the people controlling the belief to make sure the group survives. And that really brings us back around to this final quote, because at the end of the day, whether it's cognitive dissonance or something else, this quote just beautifully sums up the incredible transformation that took place. They started by looking for a kingdom that would change everything in the physical world, and they ended up with a kingdom that couldn't be changed by anything in the physical world. It's just an amazing testament to how incredibly resilient, how creative human belief can be when things don't go the way you plan.